Hello, Senior Stoner fans. It's the real Senior Stoner back at you for your Cure Mini Dab Rig. Dab of the day with diamonds. That's right, this little puppy hits like a monster. And we're going to take a look at it this afternoon, right after the topic of the day. As always, if you enjoy the topic of the day, you know what to do. Join the family with a subscription, send a like, and I respond to all comments. I want to talk today about complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS, formerly known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Now, many of you are going to say, boy, that's a complicated name for chronic pain. But it's a little different than just having pain that doesn't go away. With this particular condition, it's considered an invisible disease, and most people are unaware of it when they first see you. Most doctors cannot diagnose this. Very hard to diagnose. Many of you have also heard with this diagnosis comes along the comment from the doctors that you have to just live and cope with it. That's right. Your diagnosis of CRPS is going to affect your emotions. It's going to affect your physical and mental limitations. It's going to affect your family and your friends. It's going to affect your employment. It's going to affect the type of treatment you choose. And it's going to affect your stress level. So how do people learn to cope with this? This is not just chronic pain. This is chronic pain that when you solve the problem over here, appears over here. When you solve the problem over here, it appears over here. And so on and so on and so on. So when you're faced with a lifetime diagnosis, which this is called, or other chronic pain situations, it can be very difficult for anybody and challenging to accept the diagnosis in the first place. So acceptance of this type of problem is critical. This is critical because once you accept it, you can then look at coping strategies. But unless you have accepted, you can't move forward. So step one is acceptance. Then we've got to look for some type of support group. They can be very helpful. Now, I've joined many of these on Facebook. Support books for groups for chronic pain, things like that. And you know what I see on those groups? People who have been wounded, people who have been shot, people who have lost limbs, people who have been in car accidents. I mean, horrible, horrible, horrible things. So what a support group does, for me at least, is it lets me see where I fit within the group I belong in. And for me, frankly, the good news is it's invisible what I have. So I fall on the low end of the spectrum in one category. That one category is how visible are your ailments. They're invisible. So I've got to pace myself. People like me have to learn how to pace themselves. When you're in this condition, you're unsure what pacing even means anymore. Because I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel, constantly running, constantly moving from one pain to the next main pain. So what I want to try to do is split up, if that makes any sense, my activity into manageable chunks. What I'm going to try to do is slow the hamster wheel down. So what it means to me is morning, noon, and night, and late in the day, I've got to have some sort of plan. Some sort of plan so that it doesn't just all run together, if that makes any sense. Why? Because sometimes during a given day when you're in pain, you're just, you can't stop because you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't lay down, you can't go in a car, it hurts too much, whatever the situation. So I call it being bookended, okay? Well, guess what? You can use relaxation techniques to reduce the feeling of being bookended. Just to calm yourself down. Just to slow down the nervous system. which is working overtime because of all the pain in all the different areas. So all the relaxation techniques, sugar, do not, sugar, thank you. What you want to do is you want to use all the tools with Shuggy, stop. Use all the tools we talked about for relaxation. Now is the time to use them. You know, Mrs. Stoner constantly says to me, you have all these tools in the house for your pain. Why don't you use them? I don't know why. So you've got to use them. You've got to relax a little bit and start using the tools you have. You have to accept things. You have to accept things the way they are. You're not going to have your old life back. It's time to grieve for that. Your old ways, the career you had, learning to accept the way your life is now, the way you're going to need to do things, the way you're going to need to handle activities is critical. Some people never accept their condition. Some are constantly looking for answers, treatments, or specialists. You know what? Not anymore. Accepting is the hardest thing to do. Accepting. I've talked about it. I've told people I got it, but I didn't accept it. I'm accepting it now. As you know, there are 5 stages of grief. Well, guess what? It happens here too. When you first realize that something's going on, you're going to try to fight your way out of it. When you then accept what's gone on, totally different. Now you can talk to your doctor, your general practitioner, your specialist. Instead of overcoming, now you talk about managing. How do you manage through what you're dealing with? Maybe a hobby. Maybe you can exercise. Maybe the only way you had joy was through exercise. Well, exercise hurts you. Well, now you got to learn to exercise less, maybe in small bits. Have you ever thought of hypnosis? I've never been hypnotized for a health reason. I have been hypnotized, so I probably could use it. Biofeedback is something I've done in the past, and I find it to be incredibly helpful. I actually have some biofeedback tools in the house to help me with my blood pressure. One of the greatest ways that I've been able to help myself, and I'm going to suggest you all who have things like this, like the regional pain syndrome, distraction. Distraction is as good as any medicine, as any pain medicine, because it takes the focus away from your pain. It's a temporary way of turning your mind and thoughts to something other than the burning pain. Anything from adult coloring to knitting, it doesn't matter what it is. Get distracted. Get the visualization. Find a way to do some guided imagery that's positive. That's right. Breathing exercises. All the things that you and I have all talked about for the last few years. Time to bring them together. And guess what? They're not going to cure your chronic pain. But the answer is, it's going to help you deal with it. It's going to help you deal with CRPS. It's going to help you deal with it because what might have been happening up to now is we all might have just been throwing crap up on the wall and hoping some of it would stick. Now we're going to take some measured approaches and see if they have measured results. That's what we're going to try to do, as well as with our mini e-rig, our curer from LTQ Vapor, we're going to take our diamond dab of the day. Thank you all for joining me today. You know what to do if you enjoyed this video about how to cope with complex regional pain syndrome. It ain't easy, but you got to think about it. You got to put your 2 feet on the ground, squarely look in the mirror and say, I have this problem. And then we can start dealing with it. Cheers, everybody. Nice hits from a little buddy, isn't it? Have a great one, everybody. Let's get a handle on that chronic pain. Cheers.